Okay, let's get started, because, I don't know.
We'll never catch
We're
up.
never gonna catch up. But anyway, we're on part 7,
Yep.
judging, asking, blessing.
We don't have to.
And that is on page 122.
What did I do with them?
We moved into chapter 7 of Matthew.
Yeah.
I just had the book. For God's sake.
Judging, asking, and blessing.
Yeah. Laura
What's the
Flaherty,
next one?
can you read that, those 2 orange pages?
Certainly.
Okay,
What page are we on again? I'm sorry.
120, no,
122.
Well, that's the same focus.
22.
122, what happened to 100?
We did that last week.
Oh my God, I didn't miss it. Did I? I was here.
Oh, wait a minute. No, we're not.
Part 6 is.
We're not,
No,
right?
No, we did
Six.
part 6 last week. Didn't
We
we?
No,
know we didn't either.
No, we didn't. Freedom from fear, that's right. I'm
Oh,
sorry.
you're right. I got it.
So, we're on page 100.
Yeah, we do.
Got
There
I
you go.
love being right. It's so rare.
Here we go. Freedom from fear.
I wrote it down. I wrote it down.
Okay, freedom from fear.
100.
And when you fast, do not look gloomy like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces, that their fasting may be seen by others. Truly I say to you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, anoint your head and wash your face, that your fasting may not be seen by others, but by your Father who is in secret. And your Father who sees in secret will reward you. Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where neither moth nor rust destroys, and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. The eye is the lamp of the body. So if your eye is healthy, your whole body will be full of light. But if your eye is bad, your whole body will be full of darkness. If then the light in you is darkness, how great is the darkness? No one can serve 2 masters, for either he will hate the one and love the other, or he will be devoted to the one and despise the other. You cannot serve God and money. Therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow, nor reap, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to his span of life? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown into the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you little of faith? Therefore do not be anxious, saying, what shall we eat? Or what shall we drink? Or what shall we wear? For the Gentiles seek after all these things, and your heavenly Father knows that you need them all. But seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added to you. Therefore do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Okay, now that we're on the right page and we're all together, we'll try not to be anxious about tomorrow and just worry about today's things. So if we move to 102, what I first would say is I'm pretty sure that most of you have heard all those readings. They're pretty familiar.
Yeah.
They're part of our lectionary. They're part of our Ash Wednesday lectionary as well. So.
Let me interject something real quick. My inspiring quote today kind of went along with this. It is only with the heart that one can see rightly. what is essential is invisible to the eye.
There it is, same thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
This is just the opposite.
Well, no, it says, because your heart is the eye of the world. Well, we'll see when we get into that, there's a whole section on that one too. All right, let's turn to page 102. This is supposed to be like Jesus is on his phone. And, this probably would be like a text message or a Twitter message or X message, right? This little box right here. Offer some fasting and prayer with @Heavenly Father, #Trinity, #righteous. Like if it's Jesus's Twitter account. If Jesus was serious, then let people think what they will about us. For most of us, because everyone on this call is in the second half of life, in this room, we really kind of have let go of some of that anxiety and fear about what others think about us.
That's
At least most of the time. Worrying about what Helen is thinking about me is probably not kind of how I wake up in the morning anymore. But I know how hard that is for anybody over the age of 6, probably, until well into their 40s, to let go of what others are thinking of me and how much social media has fed into this way that we are
Yeah.
for now. The way kids see themselves, the way and even now, we've talked about this a little last week, even now, I can be, trying to compare myself to someone else's happiness, someone else's traveling, someone else's events, whatever I see on Facebook, right? Oh, don't they look happy? All their children are together. Oh, look at that. They're someplace warm. Oh, look at that, And then in between, there's the ads for this dress is on sale.
This dress on
Look
sale.
at that. And doesn't that make me think, oh, if I have this dress, I also might get to go to a warm place. That's the way our brains work, and the connections are there for sure. But remember that he wrote these books from classes that he taught to those folks in his congregation that were much younger than we are. Right? He happened to serve a church where the average age was not 69, but probably more like 39. Right? So a lot of his examples then are more appropriate, but I think we understand about being, about not understanding that fasting and prayer is a thing you're bragging about, that you're advertising. I'm going off to fast and pray,
Are you fast?
right? What else can you say about this? Because at the end, he says, what is some honest reflection that you would ask yourself, whose approval do I desire most? Can you answer that question? Whose approval do I desire most? And how might you live differently if you truly did not care what that person thought of you? Maybe this isn't something you even think about anymore. Whose approval do you desire most?
Oh, I thought about it when I moved into Chestnut Hill.
Yes, ma'am.
Oh. How do I need to behave? They'll think I'm okay. Difference doesn't make.
Well, thank you for your honesty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and the same thing, cause I'm, John and I are meeting people still up here and becoming friends, so you do want to, you don't say, well, I'm gonna behave this way so I can make these friends, but you do wanna make friends, and so you do wanna be yourself to make a good person and stuff. And figure out who I wanna hang out with, cause You pick up and don't know anybody when you move.
Okay,
Well, the
Good.
ages of my friends' residents in there goes from, well, my son's at 66, and the rest of them from 85 to 98.
Oh my gosh.
Hmm.
So I thought, just be nice and say hello, they're all good.
I won't remember you tomorrow anyway.
That sounds like a quote from your mother.
Yep.
Well, for me, I think it's flipped. Of course, when I was a kid, I wanted my parents' approval.
Yeah.
And nowadays, I'd like to have my kids approve of me and how I behave in it too.
that's so interesting. Yes. Thank you for that consideration. Yeah. Anyone else? Whose approval do you desire most?
Well, I probably desire your approval and Sharon's approval the most, and Earth's too, because I think all three of you are, people that I would like to have the same knowledge and the same attitude as, and so I would like to have the three of your approval.
Kate, I just caution you to be careful what you ask for.
Well, I mean, some people just stand out, wherever you are, and you say, oh my, they make you think, they say wonderful things, they make you, like Sharon makes me feel calm, which is a really great feat. And I think that there are people like that at this age that you meet and you want to aspire to at least have what they give to you to give to others.
I think you're right, Kate. I agree with you.
Yeah. Yeah, I think like what you've pointed to, both Ginger and Lyda, I'm thinking about new situations where I find myself, and that there is a certain, I want to be engaged with them. Like I want to know, I want them to know me, right? As opposed, I think, how it would have been when I was 10, either trying to get my parents' approval or my friends' approval. I think now I want to figure out how I can be the most helpful. Like how does my knowledge or what I know or my willingness to learn, how is that gonna impact the group that I'm a part of? And I think it's so more than that, it's outwardly centered, not inwardly centered.
Kate,
I mean,
Yes.
hey, I just wanted to say this. I think that the truth for me is that when you consider the alternative, if the alternative is disapproval, I'll go for the approval of everybody as opposed to trying to fight even the one disapproval. So I don't know. It really does beat the alternative, and so I have to admit that even starting in my childhood, that was really important to me.
Well, there are different ways, though.
Uh-oh, she's disapproving.
No, she's just trying to understand what you're saying.
There, it isn't approval or disapproval. You feel sort of overlooked or just sort of a nobody. It's not disapproval that always as opposed to approval. It's sort of just making a place for yourself, or to be somebody unique in some way, is important to me. I mean,
Good point.
Allison, I'm a people pleaser by nature, and my biggest thing is not necessarily people's approval, but I don't ever want to let anybody down. I don't, I worry that I'm not doing a good enough job as a friend or a daughter or a mom or a wife, or in a new situation, Lada, you know, I don't want to let anybody down. I don't want to, you know, I want to hold up my
Disappoint.
end.
Yeah.
When sometimes it's not possible, you know, it's a not a rational thing sometimes, but that's where I find myself stopping and not getting right with God, is I'm too worried about the human
Mhm.
relationship there.
So to me, this whole thing is about not necessarily approval or disapproval, but it's about being yourself and being responsible, not wanting to let people down. That's who you are. That's not an approval seeking to me. That's just being yourself, because that's important to you.
Right, but I think it can get me in trouble sometimes.
But anything can get you in trouble. I've
I'm
got a
worried that the
lifetime, I've got a
canasta
lifetime
ladies
of
are mad at me 'cause I'm
anecdotes
not
to
playing.
tell about that. Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I think the point of maybe the point of this little piece is that, we are not considering kind of if our lives and work are part of God's kingdom, as opposed to how much of our lives and work are set around making sure others like us, making sure we fit in, making sure we have a place, you know. So it's looking at those, it's still setting up kind of a dualistic thinking in a sense that, you know, there's a way of living in God's kingdom, and then there's a way of living in like the world. And I'm not sure that's exactly where I'd want to land on this. I'd want to find out how those things can come together. How is it possible that in God's kingdom, I have gifts and talents, and I want God's approval. But that also sounds kind of, I don't know, self-centered in a way or something. There's something about that doesn't sit right with me either. Of course I want God's approval and I want to be in the world, but maybe this whole idea that maybe we're not spending enough time, we might be spending more time thinking about how am I fitting in wherever I am, as opposed to how am I fitting in with God? I think that's like, how are we dividing up our life in that way? I think that maybe that's it. It's the only way that I feel comfortable, talking about or understanding it. Like if I'm spending more time worried about, whether I have the right dress, and I'm not worried, and I mean, because it can happen, I can fall into that trap. That somehow that happens, so maybe I'm not spending enough time in prayer and fasting, meaning trying to seek union with God. That may not be by not eating. I could be fasting from other things like what? Like, you know, looking at my phone, like gossiping, like, you know, the things that I can tend to do that really are not connecting me to God, right? As opposed to really getting a lot of atta-girls from other people. Yeah.
I think this is actually kind of a survival instinct that goes way, way back, wanting to be liked and approved. You know, you think of the caveman, if he's being chased by some wild animal, he wants somebody else to throw the spear, you know, and to say, oh, we don't care about him, let them be eaten.
He needs your tribe.
Yeah.
I don't feel like it's saying that, you know, wanting to be liked by other people and get, you know, that sort of thing is not necessarily bad. It's the way I'm reading it. He's saying it's more important that you please God than it is. So it's a priority thing.
Right.
And if you're being yourself, I mean, yes, it's okay to please people, but do it on your terms, not on their terms.
Right, there you
Isn't that
go.
the message?
Beautifully said.
That's
Beautifully
good,
said.
that's good,
Well, let's move to 37 then on page 104. And this is about his little drawing there says, all the people will know you are my disciples by your blank. By your bumper stickers? Is that what it said? No, it says all
By your
people will
love.
know you, that you're my disciples by your love.
Yep.
Right? Yeah. So we would avoid displays that make us appear more devout. So this talks about kind of, you know, I don't know, your bumper stickers, your t-shirts, your jewelry choices, all those kinds of things, that if they don't match, it's not like you can't have them. I don't, do you hear him saying that? No, I don't think that's what he's saying. I think he's saying it ought to match.
Yeah.
What your outsides are saying ought to match what your insides are saying. Daughters of the king wear a cross, right? You're supposed to wear it at all times.
Yeah,
They're not supposed to wear it at all times for me to see that they're wearing it. Why are daughters supposed to wear their cross at all times?
because we made a vow to be a daughter and we're glad to be able to show that.
What else? That's it, that's part of it.
Well, it's that cross too.
And it's a reminder to who?
Jesus.
And to you.
To us.
It's supposed to be a reminder to y'all
Yeah,
about what it
we're,
is. that
we're
connects-
daughters of the king.
Yes, right.
All y'all.
This really struck a chord with me. Who am I interrupting?
That's what you know.
There was a time when I never wore a cross. I just felt I don't want to show the world I'm a Christian. But then there came a Lenten, and I said, this is gonna be my discipline. I'm gonna wear a cross for 40 days and 40 nights and see how it feels. And I did. And then it continued. And what you said about this thing, I was thinking of this. You know, we wear it outside, but we really want to wear it inside. And oftentimes I'm wearing my cross inside, but then I come to church and say, oh, I'm gonna put it on the outside. It's so funny. It's so funny. This whole wearing what you are inside, outside. And I think today on the media, I'm astounded by the number of crosses I'm seeing on the news. People are wearing to say, okay, you know what's in my mind. And then something comes out of their mouth and.
It's not
Well, I think that's it. There's there it is again, the disconnect.
Yeah.
If the cross means what? I'm a follower of Jesus. You know, it's a symbol of death. The cross is. It's a symbol of torture. I mean, you know, that it became jewelry has always been an interesting concept. Right. Okay. Anything else? This is talking about, you know, like those who fast, those who tear their clothes, those who, you know, put oil on their face to let you know they're fasting. You know, this is that part of Matthew that we read on the Ash Wednesday that sort of says, you know, you can do a great sign to the world around you. But what is this improving your relationship with God? Is this, I shouldn't have probably used a word like improve. Is this strengthening your relationship with God? Is your prayer, is your fasting, are your bumper stickers, are your clothing choices, are those an indicator of your relationship? Or are they an outward sign of something in order that people will think something of you? Pretty much what you were saying, Kate, Helen, about people wearing jewelry and then saying something that doesn't really match with a Christian message.
Allison,
Yeah,
you know, I think too that that an important thing is, and it's used in 12-step a lot is, you know, are you walking the walk or just talking the talk? So, you know, to strive to be that, I think is really important.
yeah. And it comes and goes,
Mhm.
you know.
It strikes me that if if what Jesus was serious when we avoid displays that make us appear more devout than we are, that kind of begs the question to me of, okay, if I'm in DOK and I'm wearing the cross, that could be a sign that I'm proud to be a daughter of a king. Or it could be something somebody's trying to make themselves appear more. So it really gets back more to the intent than the actual visibility of it to me.
Right,
And people you can sort of tell, I think, whether this is just a show or whether it's something that's really sincere.
right.
You know, I have a a box in my room that I guess I've had for 70 years. And it's filled with scapulars, holy cards, rosary beads, a million different kinds of things that we either wore or carried throughout, especially my elementary Catholic years. What about you, Jen? You got a box like that, I bet.
Right.
Even some of her father's medals and whatever.
I got them.
I have them. I mean, I look for them at like vintage
Yeah,
stores.
You do?
I mean, I know that all of you sing
Collect old-
that
Yeah,
I,
I collect old
that I
ones.
wear the, can you hear me?
Yeah.
That I
Not
wear
fully.
the Star of David with the cross in the middle?
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah,
I'm driving my
Yeah.
car because I have to go somewhere and I didn't want to miss the class, so I'm doing it at the same time. I wear the Star of David. What?
I just mean, maybe you should just listen. I'm worried about you.
I know, but I just want to tell you this.
Star of David.
I just want to say that I wear, it's sitting in a handle. It's okay.
That Star of David is
I
important
wear
to you.
the Star of David with a cross in the middle of it
Right.
because that's who I am.
Yeah.
And I don't, you know, people every day look at me and go, "What is that for?" And I said, just to show you that I'm related to Jesus, because that's what he was. And they kind of look like me, like, "Oh, okay." But a lot of people ask me a lot of questions, and I don't know. It makes me feel happy to know. And I never wanted to offend either side of my family, so they've all kind of, they know that I'm love them both.
Right.
So
I like that symbol. I've noticed it before. It's the whole story, isn't it? You know, that Jesus goes all the way back to the Old Testament, and
he
I
was
mean
Jewish.
huh?
He was Jewish.
Yes, yes. And yeah, I've noticed your Star of David with the cross. I like it.
Thank you.
Anything else about this? Is just trying to get things to line up a little bit for us.
I
Yeah.
just remember something else. I just put the shirt on and it has a safety pin on it. Does anybody remember when we wore safety pins and why?
To hold your diapers up, I guess.
I don't know. Make sure your zipper works.
Oh,
remember
we wore
something
paper clips.
Yeah.
Top two.
Right, after George Floyd.
So this was a visible sign. And we wore it in the hospital and working, and so that people knew that we were safe.
Yeah.
Huh.
That you were what?
We're Christians.
Safety pin.
It just popped up. I mean, I just like.
I think that's good. I did not know that.
I didn't know that. I missed that.
Well, I knew that, but I also, we used to, when we were doing the story of the paperclip, it got to be a, you know, everybody had to have on a paperclip when they first saw that movie. I guess you've all seen it, but so we all walked around with that on.
What movie?
Yeah, what movie?
I forget.
Paperclip?
What me-
The paperclip is what that, the movie that how they taught the children in Tennessee who had never heard of the Holocaust or any of that, and the teachers didn't feel confident enough to teach it, and the kids said, "Well, how many is 20 million?" Altogether, they couldn't fathom what that was like, so they had people started sending in paper clips if they had been in a concentration camp or with their name attached to that.
Oh.
And if they'd lost family members, and the people in the country of Sweden all wore paper clips if they were a safe person to talk to. And so it's a wonderful movie. I'll bring it with me next time. But anyway, so everybody that was studying that stuff, we all had to have a paper clip so that we thought we were on the right side.
Interesting.
That's good.
Well, thank you all for that conversation, and we'll go to number 38. If Jesus was serious, then we will desire God's presence above all else. This is coming from the part where Jesus said, do not lay up treasures for yourself on earth, but lay up treasures in heaven. He says, we've been conditioned to think these are future rewards, you know, like we talk about stars in your crown, right? It's rather than enjoying life now and serving God in his kingdom. Jesus didn't actually talk that way. There is nothing in this portion of the Sermon on the Mount about a reward waiting for us at the end after our death, or about delayed gratification. These are ideas that he says, projected onto the text, not in the text itself. Jesus is talking about that present reality of heaven, not some distant place. But Jesus, he says, some epistles, we might hear writers talking about someplace beyond this life, but Jesus is talking about something different, about a treasure that is accessible to us right now. And that treasure is the presence of God in our lives. We don't have to wait until some future time to be in God's presence, right? We can be present with God in the here and the now. Far more valuable than something that might be in our next life, whatever that is, which we don't know about. What we do know about is this life.
Oh, yeah.
Right? And so I think if we go backwards a little bit to think about, if I just plop a bumper sticker on my car or wear a t-shirt, am I furthering my relationship with God? Or is that cross, that bumper sticker, that thing a stand-in for working on a true relationship with God? Laying up my treasures for heaven. His picture shows, right, that popular view that we get what we deserve, which is not how God talks to us, but we get what we deserve in eternal life after our death. Or in the biblical view, eternal life is just the continuation of our life now. Not something we're trying to, I guess, pole vault into.
That makes me think of
It's
the
quite a
video
leap of
games.
faith.
Right?
I hope it's not a pole vault.
I know.
Well, Irv's granddaughter could do it.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
She'll have to take each of us over.
So anyway, so it's about desiring God's presence or desiring God in our lives as opposed to a savings account that you will be able to access at the end of your life. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I get that, right? We're not looking for like, I don't know, the things you're gonna put in that bucket that say, look what a good girl was I.
So when you check in at the gate, you can get in.
Right, exactly. Right, so none of that comes from Jesus. I hope this is what he's saying. Common.
I like the last sentence in this chapter. This
Yep.
where he says that having the treasure of God is far more valuable than any other treasure the world might offer.
Yeah,
Kind of says it all to me.
it does.
I like this whole aspect of, we hear heaven as a child, and heaven is up there, it's in the future, it's unattainable. And I like this whole idea that it is present reality. That was it.
It's God with you,
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, it takes us a little time sometime to realize that when God says, and I will be with you always, that he really means that. And then I remember hearing about Brother Lawrence, who talked about God is with him even when he's peeling potatoes in the kitchen, and I'm like, oh, wow. He really is with us.
So
You know,
Ginger,
and-
what you said that God really means that sounds like God says some things he doesn't really mean, but I don't quite buy that, so
Well, I think what God says he means every time.
I do too. I was just kind of trying to be a little cute.
That seems so way out. Could that possibly be true?
Yeah,
Yeah. So. I have to stop and
Supposed
think
to be in there.
and realize it is true.
I have an appointment now at 9:45 with you.
Well, thank you for being with us.
Do what?
and happy birthday.
Yeah.
I'm listening, I really am, but I'm trying to. Okay, I'll go sit up here. Listen to my class. Go, people.
Okay. Okay, well, 108, if Jesus was serious, then what we treasure most will define our lives. Remember, Jesus said, you can't serve two masters.
Uh-huh.
You either love God or you love whatever else it is you're loving. And this is that Wheel of Fortune, his little graphic here. An idol is usually a good thing that we make ultimate. Tons of literature, tons of movies have demonstrated what happens to people when something like money or fame or anything gets in there. What doesn't matter what it is, becomes the end all be all. Right? In the center of the wheel, it says, who's your God? Is it Jesus? Is it the church? And see how that can happen? I guess that's a Cubs logo,
And our base sports.
you know. Are your children, is your identity as an American? Is it making money? Right? Is it violence? Is it concerns of the world? And then maybe at any time, I suppose like any of these things, there's not absolutes. We read this, we study this because we can forget. We can be attracted to the allure of whatever it is. If there's anything else about this section of the Sermon on the Mount, it's that we can be attracted to many other things that often might detract us. And that's why Jesus spoke them. I have to imagine he didn't just speak them because, I don't know, came to him in a dream. I think he spoke them because these are human concerns that most people would identify with. Most people, even 2,000 years ago, can identify with these. And we identify with them today. And what are we concerned with, and what occupies our imagination and our daydreaming, what motivates our actions? Jesus warns us not to give the precious, life-defining role of our treasure to anything or anyone unworthy of it. It belongs to God alone. What'd you say? Anything? I gave, and in your handout for today, which I didn't send to Carrie until 9:15. So but it'll probably be later attached to the note, or is a part of Psalm 115 that he mentions there at the end. And Psalm 15 says, those who teach illusion, this is the paraphrasing by Nan Merrill. Those who teach illusion are ignorant, as are those who trust in them. O people of earth, trust in the beloved one, in the Holy One, who is your very life. O nations of the world, put your trust in the beloved one, in the Holy One, who is your guide and counselor. You who open your hearts to love will find inner peace. through the Holy One who is your teacher. The beloved is ever mindful of us and blesses us. Love will bless all peoples. Love will bless the nations. The beloved will bless those invite love within, who open wide the door and who bless the world with their presence. May you call upon the Holy One, you and your children. May you be guided by the Spirit of truth who dwells within your heart. The heavens declare the glory of the Creator. The earth too is filled with wonder and gifts of love. The beloved has shown us the eternal life. Let us trust the Holy One from this time forth and forevermore. Sing praises to the living presence, to you, life of all life. Psalm 115 sort of gives us that view. What is our ultimate concern? And where does our treasure belong? All right. Hearing nothing, we'll move on to 40. If Jesus was serious, then how we see the world will be determined. This goes to what Lyda read us this morning, will be determined by our heart. And this one is a little trickier. He says the ancient view, which I'm guessing he means in the time of Jesus, that your heart determines what you see. And so in order to see something differently, one must transform their heart. As opposed to the modern view, which what you see determines your heart. And the goal would be to transform circumstances. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think he's just trying to give a better understanding of the words as Jesus spoke them, right? I don't think he's saying one is better or worse than another. People can be transformed. Circumstances certainly be transformed, but what is the starting point? Is the starting point with God, or is the starting point somewhere else? So comes right after treasures. And right before Jesus starts talking about wealth. These are the places where we have a lot to say. We can reframe a lot of stuff. We do. We have to try to make it fit in our worldview. If your eye is the lamp of the body and your eye is healthy, then your whole body will be full of light. Jesus has been focused on this inner orientation because it determines our outward behavior.
I like this illustration because, it really made me think about how sometimes I want to jump right into transforming circumstances. But again, I need to think of my heart first and where these actions are coming from.
Yeah.
Well said.
That
Really
is
well.
good.
Yeah. Do you don't have anything specific in mind, right, at this moment? That's just more of a generalized observation.
Generalized because there's so many things that I think need transforming.
Right, yes. That's a class for a different day, yes.
Session.
That it's our heart that needs our heart needs transforming. This is like when we say, and how did he set this up? Pray for your enemies. Right?
Mhm.
I mean, it's not like, oh, he's just gonna plop this little wonder down in the middle of all this. He's been setting this up for a while. That changing of our heart, yeah. That's about the way we've been praying, the way we've been in relationship, yeah. I think that's one that I could go back to and, think about, and he goes into some language differences. Healthy and bad. In other passages of scripture, these words are translated as generous and stingy or grudgingly. Jesus is saying the way we handle our wealth is a reflection of what is in our hearts. And I think that's important for us who can get, I'm not asking anybody to beat themselves up or feel bad about how much money they do or don't have. It's about the condition, like what you're gonna do with that, right? What do you do with your money? What do you do with, okay, with wealth in general? Doesn't necessarily mean, we take it to mean money, yes, I get that often, but wealth can mean, also any place else that we have this abundance. Not just dollars.
And me
Yeah.
time too.
Yeah,
Creativity,
creativity, intelligence, yeah. Ability,
Talents.
yeah. Okay, we have like four more. Come on. We have 41. If Jesus was serious, then we cannot live with divided loyalty. We're coming back to that. He's revisiting this. In the picture, the throne says King of Kings and Lord of Lords, but the dude sitting in it looks like Mr. Moneybags, right? Cash coming.
The Monopoly Man.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And Jesus says, I think you're in my seat.
I love his ear.
Right.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, that one's good. We don't have to, we pretty much get that one, right?
Yeah.
He goes on to talk about the differences about slavery and loyalty, and he tells this little story
Mm.
about this guy named Saunders. Which is just, I'd never heard that story before. Did any of you ever heard that story before? So, because slavery is such, enslavement is such a part of this country's history and how we know ourselves. There's been slavery, we know that that has existed and continues to exist today, but loyalty to one's master has really been the key. That's what keeps people in slavery. This tells that story about the guy who wanted to pray, but his master thought that he was wasting his time praying because he wasn't working. Even this man who was enslaved knew who his real master was. Amazing to me. You know,
And he felt very comfortable speaking up and saying that, I'll
Right.
lose my life over this if I need to, but
right.
I'll be better off.
I don't, and how about that conviction? No one has a gun to my head to pray. And I that's what caught me up short, was like, well, I'm pretty free to pray. No one- My own limitations, whatever, but I'm pretty free to pray. Wonder if I would have stayed on my knees.
And,
Yeah. Or maybe I can, maybe it gives me license to sort of say, I can do this, right? I'm not facing that sort of a challenge to pray. Maybe I can do this. Maybe when I feel my own internal things that stop me from prayer, maybe they're not as great as that. So some ways it was freeing to sort of say, I'm not facing that. I mean, I may have my own challenges, definitely, but I'm not facing the threat of a pistol.
yeah.
Yeah. So his question is, who is your master, right? Sometimes I find that language offensive, but I get the context. So who is, who has control over our lives? Which is hard in a place where we've been taught we have control over our lives.
Our God is in control, but I have to say that lately, it seems like the media and the news is controlling my
Oh,
night
okay,
before.
yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone else having that experience? That perhaps the media, the news is controlling your life?
Hmm.
Yeah,
Hard to ignore.
hard to ignore. Yeah, what should we ignore? What's our responsibility to pay attention to? Yeah.
But then again, I mean, maybe I'm jumping ahead, but worrying about this, is it gonna, I'm supposed to not worry about it, right? I'm not supposed to be anxious about tomorrow and what all's going on out there, particularly since I can't do a whole lot to change it, but again, what's your master? What are you ruminating about?
Yeah.
Maybe we're not supposed to be anxious, but we still could be concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't see how you can be a Christian and not be concerned about some of those things, but
Right. It's a-
I'm not, there's just so much. I mean, even when you look at the poor people, in Kentucky and the flooding and the snow and the whatever, you're just like,
Right,
there are all these images that I feel like it's just hard to, anyway, I digress.
no, you didn't, that's
No,
not a
you
digression.
don't.
I think it's a reality. I must be channeling some Sharon Stricker this morning. I have an image of a balance beam. And that's it. We can, yes, we could fall off on the side that says, I'm just gonna go live as a hermit. Right? Pray 24/7. I'll fast, I'll pray, I'll read scripture. I will not watch any news. I will not engage in conversations about the news or whatever. And then we could fall off on the other side that says, I'm totally involved. I'm just gonna be, whatever it is. I don't know. I'm gonna be worried. I'm gonna be anxious. I'm gonna watch it all. I'm gonna try, I think I see Jesus is like my balance beam. This is, I gotta stay,
That's good.
I mean, I can slip on one side or the other. Hopefully I'm a trained enough gymnast that I can recover my balance. I don't know, this analogy is wearing thin now, but that's just the image I'm having in my head about it.
That's a good one, Allison.
Mhm.
Okay, from the master of analogy, I'll
Oh,
take that.
please.
All right, anything else? So we can find really real examples of all of this in our lives,
Yeah,
right? This is not just some hypothetical, existential
that's right.
thing. It's a thing that's really impacting all of us. Well, here we go again. And so it's really, again, the same message. I'm glad, isn't it interesting how many opportunities Jesus in these short number of verses gives us so many opportunities to revisit basically the same thing? I mean, in case you missed it, it's coming back around. It's coming back around. So, right, if you didn't
You
get it
think
the
he
first-
wants us to pay attention?
Yeah.
He knew that we need to hear
Think
it
he was
over and
serious.
over and over again.
Pay attention.
Right? If Jesus was serious, then we will recognize the illusion of control that money creates. Why does Jesus single out money? He asked that question. As a temptation when so many other false masters may choose to serve other than God. Why? In our drawing gives us some things. We feel safe and secure. Check. Offers me power over the world. Check. Gives me a sense of value and dignity. Check. Is there a community? There is a community that shares my worship. Oh yeah. There's a community that worships money. Yes, check. Will never abandon me even after death. This is the only difference. According to this diagram, I'm just saying, according to his illustration, you may think of other ways, but he sort of said, who is with me? Money, we already know all the things about money not following us into the forever ever. Will never abandon me even after death. So only the living God gets the check mark.
Can't take it with you.
Can't take it with you. So I hope we can read that he doesn't say that wealth or money is inherently evil. In scripture, we've seen their wealth. They helped support the disciples on the mission. But it has a dark side. Because, just for those reasons.
I just want to bring up one thing that I just thought of looking at this. This one is, will never abandon me even after death. And yet, here we are at the end of our lives in the last decades. And we can have a legacy that, an inheritance that can continue beyond us. And that's where our values can be, live even with money or talents or gifts that we have that can be, go on to the next generation, to the next generation, to the next.
Yeah, but that's the intent of the gift, but not its impact on you, right?
Not on me.
No,
No, but actually, in a way it does, because when you start to think about your legacy and what you want for the next generation,
Did you want to
it
do
does
that?
affect you. I'm having lots of conversations with relatives and friends about this now, because it's in my mind.
Mhm.
And the thing that, it's, if you have great wealth at the end of your life, that's easy to pass on. But what I feel so strongly that I want to pass on is a foundation of faith for my children and to go forward into the generations. And that that's hard. I don't know. Some things are easy to pass on, and some things are more important. And I need to find better ways of passing it on.
That's something to think about.
But, passing on your faith is lasting. When you pass on money, they can blow through that so fast and
Right.
stops. If you really pass on good faith, they can go generation, generation, generation. Money can too, but a lot of times they're not putting it.
And it's always the stumbling block that we all deal with great wealth. It's a blessing, but it's also a very tempting idol. And so, passing on the easy life with lots of money to our children is not always a legacy that is ultimately important.
One of the things that I feel like I learned in my private practice in Charleston was that depression and anxiety as disorders, doesn't matter how much money people had. And some of the clients that I saw there had a lot of money, and some didn't have very much money at all. The ones who struggled the most with their depression and anxiety were the ones that really did have the money and came to the realization, like they walked into a wall, that none of that could buy them out of what they were feeling. And it was it was harder to treat, excuse me. I think harder to treat folks that had grown up and always had that, and it was a solution to things along the way, no matter what went wrong. But now all of a sudden it couldn't fix affairs of the heart or head.
Mm-hmm.
Did everybody go home?
Just listening.
No, I'm just, I'm
Agreed.
playing it, so.
I mean, the text he's talking about is that it's easier for a person, like going through the eye of a needle,
I know.
right?
The
Easier for
camel.
a camel to go through the eye of the needle than a rich person to enter the kingdom of God. Right? That's from Matthew. That's from, and this is, people struggle with this.
Yeah.
I had a spiritual director once and she said, what is it that you could get rid of? What are you carrying? I mean, she was trying to expand it for me. Since I wasn't a rich person, I was like, I don't understand this text. And she said, what could you get rid of that would get you through someplace narrow? What are the things you carry around? Like what's in this bag and what's on this bag and what's in here? That was like a years-long conversation about the things I was putting in these saddlebags on my camel, right? That was keeping me from going through the eye of the needle.
Yeah.
I was actually discerning the call to the priesthood. And that's what, I mean, that was our metaphor for that. Like, I thought I just can't get through that. I can't get through that eye of the needle. I don't know, I can't be a priest. I can't, there's too much. There's my family, there's my job, there's my life, there's my whatever. There's my inadequacies, there's my background, my past, my sins, I had a lot, apparently I had a lot of them. So, those are the things I kept saying when I would get to the place of like getting through that eye of the needle and I'd be like, oh, no, too big, gotta turn around. Can't go any further. So, the things that keep us from entering into this relationship with God, that keep us from doing what God would be calling us to do, the things that our money we can use our money for, which is what he says. And then these are the things that we think about. What is that money? What can that money do? Or where have I put my trust in some other way? And it leads directly into the next section on abundance and scarcity.
Yeah, before you go there,
Yeah,
it's been pretty generic, male and female. In the last paragraph, she will surrender control to God and use her wealth as a tool to gain more glory for him.
Yep.
And when I was reading it, so why feminine?
Don't know. You'd have to write him a letter and ask him.
Okay, well,
But isn't it nice? We did get a feminine reference. I'm not sure. One out of 1,737, yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I did see that too, as well.
I saw.
Okay, so will there be enough? Oh my goodness, has
Oh.
anyone ever said that?
Yeah.
Okay. Will there be enough? He gets to quote one of our favorites, Walter Brueggemann here. And if you've never read this part where Brueggemann talks about the Pharaoh and the Israelites, it's pretty powerful. The scarcity that Pharaoh lives under and the abundance that the people of Israel live under. There won't be enough for the Pharaoh if Hebrew children continue to be born, if. So he continues to make it harder and harder for them to survive, but Jesus is standing in the middle of the diagram saying, do not worry, right? Give freely, do not love money, share with what you have. And so that's if we think there is yes, that God will provide and I will be saved. And the commands of Jesus make sense. And then on no, it says the world is dangerous and I have to have control. And no one's arguing with that. It's not that there aren't facts like that. It's not that. The commands of Jesus are foolish. And then we become enslaved by fear or self-interest. So it may not be that this is your schematic, but I would guarantee you have some schematic, right? There's some way when you are faced with something that you tend to be on one side or the other of that. There's enough or there's not enough. Maybe we don't connect that with following the commands of Christ. Okay, I can't, maybe you don't, but maybe he gives us an example of how we might. Like when I feel like there is not enough time, money, energy, love, ability. I mean, fill in the blank for your own kinds of things that you think there are not enough of. Goodwill, that's been mine lately.
Eggs.
Huh? Yeah.
Eggs.
Eggs.
Right, if I think there's not enough, I might find out there's eggs somewhere and buy up eggs I'm never gonna use. In fact, I
Think
have,
about during COVID, how many
Well,
people
that's, yeah,
stockpiled toilet paper,
Toilet
everything.
paper, I was just thinking of that too.
yeah.
and some of those are real things. I want toilet paper. I might can live without eggs for a while, you know what, I might could.
Can't live without toilet paper.
I'm
Need
probably
that.
not wanting to live without toilet paper or tissues or some
Some form of,
something. I probably have to go further
we'll
down
stop
that.
there.
But in any case, there were, you know, and then I mean, what is the line? Of course, I got all my toilet paper from the church. Now, remember, I wasn't serving here. So since there wasn't church and no one was in the building, I was like, I got a fair supply of toilet paper. So it wasn't quite as big a concern probably for me as it was for a lot of people.
Well, the baby formula was really,
Baby formula, yeah. Yep,
that was after COVID, but that was when they had
just a
the
couple of years ago, yeah.
the plant had shut down. And
Well, then there was some serious contamination,
yeah,
and so, yeah. So do you believe in the myth of scarcity, or have you been liberated by the abundance of God's kingdom? Yeah,
Come see,
Which-
come saw.
that's right, on
Listen.
any given, yeah, on any given Sunday, as they used to say about football, on any given Sunday, I could feel one way or the other.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm gonna be honest, I know it shouldn't feel like that, but Laura, I think I got really into that during COVID, because, you know, I had my children came home. When you start messing with me feeding my children, that's when I can get maybe greedy, whatever these things are. And, you know, it's one thing about me, but if I can't feed them, then what, you know, so you start getting kind of compulsive about it. But, I want to believe that God's going to provide. And I think he will. It may not be the way I necessarily think it should be, but that's what I feel like God is about sometimes. Getting me out of myself.
Yeah, the division around the world, even if we can move outside of our own needs, we
Oh,
think
yeah.
about what's happening some places in the world, and then we think about scarcity and abundance. And can I just say I've left that in God's hands and what's happening? Because there isn't enough food. You know, maybe that's not the intent of this particular piece of the gospel, but I can't help thinking about that as well.
Yeah.
So. Yeah, Laura. Oh, she's saying goodbye. Okay. All right, y'all. I think this is the last.
this is the last one.
No, we have two more.
Okay.
If Jesus was serious, then we will not be enslaved by our fears. He uses the breastplate of Saint Patrick, which we're kind of familiar with, right? Christ behind me, Christ before me, Christ behind, within me, beneath me, above me, at my right and at my left. This old Celtic rune that we adapted and put the word of Christ in. It existed well before Christianity came to Ireland, but it is called a circle prayer, and this is it. And what are we circling ourselves with? You may have heard another way: encircle me, God, with your love. Encircle me, you know, keep fear away and keep love within, keep pain without and keep love within, keep all the things that you want to think of. And I love his visual because it shows the image of Jesus kind of, you know, really as this rune for protection. Because we do get enslaved by our fears. And he uses the example of St. Patrick as someone who was enslaved and then decided to go back to the people that enslaved him to preach the good news. Amazing. I can't even go back to the middle of Ohio, you know, so like be around people who knew me way back in the day. I can't even do that, and I wouldn't even be preaching, just like, you know, my very presence or something. So I think, you know, there's an idea of how we can call on Jesus And I have to look around this room and the one on the screen and know that you all have done that, like that is something. But we also know how we can be enslaved by fear. Anyone who's awakened at 2 o'clock in the morning. With the what ifs of life. Knows
It
this.
just reminds me of Emmanuel, Emmanuel, God with us.
Yeah,
I know when my dad was in a really bad way and he was dying and it was really awful. And that would just pop in my head no matter where I was. Emmanuel, God with us, Emmanuel. I knew that God was there. I had to keep telling myself, but that was my sort of chant that I would do, or mantra. But this reminds me of that he's all around us.
thanks for sharing that,
Like it.
because it is an invitation, as he says, to release our fears.
Mhm.
Okay, 45, fear engenders fear, Henry Nouwen said. It never gives birth to love. And his illustration is of 2 doors. Under surveillance, keep out, beware of dog, no trespassing, warning, armed, or a welcome mat out in front of a door that's open.
With the round reef,
With a round wreath,
so it's
yes,
continuous.
right? Oh, that's good, yeah. So his thought is that scarcity leads us to fear. And then fear leads us to what? More fear. That's his premise. It's pretty true. We know how that we say is something circling us down the drain, right? I hear that sucking sound, or is something spinning us out into the world in love. 2 ways we could go. He says it's with love that this happens. What is the text that I always cling to is that perfect love casts out fear. And to me, the perfect love, then the manifestation of that, or the image of that is Jesus. Casting out fear. Clearly, I can't do it on my own. I'm not very good at that. On my own, I tend to be hoarding, strangling. The what ifs can consume me. We will pull our resources inward in a posture of protection and self-preservation. We think about our needs, ourselves, our survival. And from this defensive position, we cannot love because we cannot give. What is the other image that comes to mind for many of you? Might be, right, this image of the closed fist versus this image of the open hand. Right, we can't, I preached about this when we go to the altar rail, we put our hands out. We don't go with a closed fist to the altar rail.
No.
It'd be very hard to receive a wafer like that. But like this is where we receive the bread, the life, the love. This is the same, right? But it can happen internally, right? Like we get worried and contracted and self-protected, which is, I think someone said, Laura said earlier, what is a primal instinct?
Mhm.
Self-protection, super primal instinct. We protect life at all cost.
Allison, could I share something as we close up here?
Yep.
As some of you know, I'm a quote monger. And also, as some of you know, I have a friend named John O'Leary who was in an accident, was burned over 98% of his body when he was 9 years old. Managed to live against all odds. And I get something every week from him, and this is what I got either this week or last week. It seems to be very appropriate for what we've been talking about all day.
Good.
It says, paradoxically, it's in letting go of our self-centered desires that we find serenity. It's in faithfully keeping our hearts open to serving others. even sometimes having them broken by those we love, that the meaning, joy, and real peace we seek is gradually revealed. This realization began for me in my early 20s. After years of rejection, self-pity, and self-doubt, which is understandable given his circumstances, I stopped trying to convince others I was lovable and started loving others as they were. I let go of my fear of being alone and embraced by the gift of time by myself. I let go of operating from a place of self-centered fear and began living from a place of unconditional love. No strings attached, no expectations, no agenda hidden or validation sought. In other words, I loved. That choice changed the way I saw myself. It transformed the way I showed up in the world. It altered the way the world saw me. And it even led to a gorgeous brunette seeing beauty in what I once felt was brokenness, taking my hand and walking forward with me. That just seems to encapsulate what we've been talking about all day.
Yeah.
That was really good. Thanks for sharing, Eric.
It's
Let go, and let God.
Yeah.
I mean, you could use imagine the scars all over that body, so that
This somehow just popped up to me just a few minutes ago, and I guess that's a God thing, so.
I think so. We're gonna take it like that. Thank you all for hanging on for an extra 20 minutes this morning.
That was good.
It's good stuff.
So, next week we will be on part 7, judging, asking, blessing.